So how has this negative campaigning affected political discourse in the United States? And have political campaigns in 2012 reached a low point of no return? Joining me now to offer his insights on these questions and much more is Raymond Glendening. He's the Chief Operations Officer at Ruckus, which is an online political engagement community based here in Washington, D.C. He's also a former political campaign consultant. So let me start with the simple question. Is negativity effective?
I think so, and I think that's why you're seeing it more and more. It's effective from a ballot box perspective. It absolutely energizes your people and to a certain extent suppresses some of the opposition. But you know, from a broader perspective of the national political discourse in this country, I think it's hurting it pretty badly. And you're seeing a growth of these kind of outside movements in the country, whether it was the Occupy Wall Street movement in 2011, the Tea Party movement in 2010. I think you're going to continue to see this trend of kind of these spin-off movements that are basically direct correlatives of the negative campaigning that's happening in this country. And you're seeing really a squeezing of the proverbial independent and middle to the point now where I was reading something on the latest Gallup poll that was released. We're looking at 3 or 4% undecided, and we're now 40-something days out. That's astonishing to me. I mean, we're going to see an onslaught of campaigning and an onslaught of negative messages across the televisions, not just from candidates, but from national parties and, of course, super PACs this year, which are going to play a particularly big role. And I think 95% of it's going to be negative. And if you went to the average voter and said, hey, where does Mitt Romney stand on education? Or where does Barack Obama stand on clean air? You'd probably have a lot of people that say, I have no idea, but I tell you what, and they'll be able to regurgitate many negative campaign lines. And I think that's really a reflection of where national politics is.
You know, what's interesting, when I think back about political advertising, a lot of the negative ones come to mind, but some of the really positive ones demonstrating the strengths of the candidates. Of course, with Obama, it was hope and change, that kind of feeling that kind of touches Americans. With Reagan, you know, Morning in America, the time is now for Reagan. Why not the strength aspect of the candidates? So that when we go to vote as Americans, we have kind of a good feeling about either one of these candidates, rather than, oh, I'm going to vote for this person because I hate that guy that much more.
Yeah, I think that part of that is campaigns trying to read the pulse of the American public right now. And when you look at any poll, you have congressional disapproval at 80, 85, 90%, and the other 10%, I'm not exactly certain who they are. But they're essentially reading kind of the mood and the tempo of the country. And when it's reflecting in kind of a negative way, I think that people and that campaigns, you know, they recite that kind of a message and that kind of a tone. If you saw a generally happy country, or a country that thought that they're on the right track, I think that you'd see more proactive, visionary type statements from the campaigns. But I think that they're just kind of reading the polls and moving along that way.
You know, I want to throw some figures out. Recently, USA Today Gallup poll did some studies with American voters. In 2008, 25% of the voters thought both candidates would make good presidents. This time around, in 2012, 12% think both candidates would make good presidents. 12%, which is a very, very low margin. What does that say about the impact of these negative ads and how people feel about the candidates they're going to go and vote for?
I think that you're seeing a deflation of enthusiasm about the political process in general. You know, there's still people, I think, that are energetic about President Obama and energetic about Mitt Romney. But in general, I think you're seeing a deflation about voting and about being civically engaged in this country and about being part of the electoral process. And you feel that anywhere, whether it's a supermarket or at the bank, whether you're talking to somebody that's very conservative or very liberal. You're picking up the negativity that's out there. And I remember listening to my father, my aunts and uncles, or my grandparents talk about you know, the 1968 campaign or the 1982 campaign in such a positive, enthusiastic way. And outside of you know, Reagan and Obama there, but now when you hear people talk about it, it's just a very negative type tone that you hear about these presidential campaigns. And I think that's too bad for the discourse, the political discourse that's happening in this country.